Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining in this ongoing series of Rahu and Ketu in the houses. And in the last video on Rahu, we looked at the results of Rahu in the fourth house. And this time, we'll be looking at Rahu in the fifth house. Okay. Now, to put things in perspective, Rahu in the fifth house is known as Padma. And Padma, in the context of Rahu and Ketu, invokes the image of a bright red spot on an elephant's skin. So this image is symbolic of Padma's ability to display intelligence in a charming yet very dramatic manner. Now, Padma is regarded as a gifted entertainer, but Padma also refers to a court jester who offers wisdom that is not true vidya, but only fabricated. Okay. And for a native, having this Rahu in the fifth house, there is often a focus on children, creativity, insight, research, strategy, writing, and a generally high value placed on analysis, assessment, and judgment. Okay. So such a native can be a charismatic teacher or a modern day guru in the mold of, say, someone like Tony Robbins, who is not a true teacher of the Vidya, but is a motivational entertainer whose message has greater appeal to the materialistic side of modern society. And these people, they often rely more on intuition than analysis, and as a result, can suffer from some kind of losses in terms of romance, speculation, or investment. Okay, so how does Rahu behave in the fifth house? Let's have a detailed look. Now, Rahu in the fifth house is usually very troublesome and problematic. Okay, so it is considered to be a dosha, basically, because the fifth house is the house of Purva Punya. And whenever Rahu gets into the fifth house, it becomes a blemish and it indicates some kind of a defect or problem. Okay, and why that happens is because Rahu, which is the head of the snake, is intent on swallowing things and is more interested than Ketu in mundane gains. So all fifth house activities like mental development, study, and spiritual practices have very little in common when it comes to the materialistic and sensual aspects of Rahu. And if anything, Rahu in the fifth becomes the blind spot that we do not see, the flaw in our worldview. So Rahu represents desire and obsession, and Ketu, it indicates ambivalence and detachment. So with Rahu in the fifth, Ketu will obviously go to the 11th. So it indicates a bias for the arts and entertainment, children, creativity, drama, sometimes at the cost of older siblings, friends, social networks, and income. The fifth house also rules the stomach and the mind, and both are responsible for digesting food. The stomach is responsible for digesting food, while the mind is, responsible for digesting information. So Ayurveda says that stomach pain arises from an unsettled mind. So something that has not been integrated emotionally or existentially gives the feeling of indigestion to the psyche. So mild afflictions might result in minor digestive upsets and irregularities. For example, how much they might delight the native's taste for foreign dishes, some spices may disagree with his or her constitution. But then Rahu also rules toxins, as we all know. So in the fifth house, it can indicate cases of food poisoning via low-grade product adulteration or outright contamination. And it could also imply something more ominous, for example, a stomach ulcer that might, develop into some form of cancer if left untreated or aggravated. But then this prognosis would only be warranted when many malefic influences indicate the same conclusion. Now, Rahu is also very tamasic and toxic, and in the fifth house, it implies some form of mental pollution. So if the native indulges in a lot of hatred or intolerance or, misogyny or racism, such a native's spirituality will diminish to the same degree his lower nature is nurtured. Okay, so the end result can be a very lopsided person whose veneer of social conditioning scarcely marks the dark hides rather the darker side of an undisciplined mind. Okay. And on the flip side, Rahu represents sharpness or tikshna. Okay. So such a Rahu in the fifth can indicate an intellectual omnivore who is capable of digesting difficult subjects, like a scavenger whose palate knows no discrimination and whose metabolism can assimilate anything. Okay. And such a placement can give a sharp, penetrating and powerful insight. Okay. And if this combination happens in a fire sign, it may indicate, further felicitation to this fact. Okay. That these people can have a very good intuitive, these people could have very good intuitive abilities. Okay. And if another Agnigraha like Mars joins the combination, then these people will have a very penetrating and sharp way of looking at things. Okay. Now, there is a polarity between the fifth and the 11th house. And in the fifth house, the discerning mind has a specific focus, while the 11th house includes our vague aspirations, hopes, dreams, and associations. And because Rahu represents obsessions while Ketu represents ambivalence, there can be a, comprehensive embrace of one versus a flirtatious but vacillating, dance with the other. And although we obsess over making right choices to achieve our goals, we simultaneously long for our sometimes vague dreams to come true. But sometimes the two are irreconcilable. Okay. And as I said, because Rahu is omnivorous, Rahu's hunger is never satisfied. The native may feel incomplete without constant admiration and recognition. Okay. No matter whatever his or her field, such a native is always driven to keep reinventing himself or herself, assuming new guises or disguises, innovating to keep the spotlight on him or her, and even risking the public image that has been created. Now, the fifth also rules the buddhi, our discriminating intelligence, and one with Rahu in the fifth may display powers of analysis, concentration, discrimination, invention, logic, research, or strategy. And this can apply in the field of arts and entertainment, as well as in medical and scientific disciplines, and especially in the field of investments, because Ketu in the 11th, rather than Rahu in the fifth, will indicate easy money. And in rare cases, the talent of such a native may turn to non-traditional subjects ruled by Rahu, which includes astrology or mysticism, the occult, or even the paranormal. Okay. Intellectually, such a person is drawn to whatever is different, strange or unusual. And the study of foreign cultures, for example, anthropology, offers one an academic route. And short of leaving one's country, however, one could just as likely study countercultures. Okay. For example, whatever is Bohemian offers some sort of appeal. Okay. Such a native may be a charismatic teacher or a modern day guru in the mold of a Tony Robbins. As I said, not a true teacher of the Vidya, but a materialistic, a materialistic or a motivational entertainer who appeals to the materialistic mind of the modern society. Okay. Now, Rahu in the fifth can also express its desire and passion through creative acts, mental pursuits and drama of some kind or the other, whether in the personal, social, or political sphere. And the creative genius of such a native may be displayed through arts and entertainment, games and sports, stage drama, and fashion shows. Okay. Such a native can seek recognition for his or her gamesmanship, sometimes heedless of the negative associations of such a label. Okay. Now, the fifth house is associated with authorship, and Rahu in this placement can confer literary abilities and even genius. Okay. Such a native would want to create something extraordinary, something so brilliant that it will cause awe among onlookers and stand as a testimony to his or her unique talents. Okay. Such a native would also seek an appropriate stage to showcase his or her talents in venues like, in diverse venues like theater or politics, to gain the recognition that he or she desires. Artistic performance in politics with large audiences and electorates hold special appeal for whoever seeks social privileges equivalent to royalty. And in politics or the arts, Rahu in the fifth is an agent provocator, someone who will rock the boat even at the risk of upsetting it. And the more dramatic or outrageous the act, the more compelled he or she is to do it. intuitively sensing that there is no such thing as a bad publicity. And such a native may seek to create a new political order, assuming his innovative policies will find acceptance amongst the electorate. And if that fails, then such a native can easily toss his or her ideals into the dumpster and hitch a ride with another political party where he or she will insinuate himself or herself, even if he or she must disguise it what he or she was before changing stripes or before changing colors. Okay. Now, fifth house is all about pageantry and parties, and Rahu is all smoke and mirrors. So, such a native may be guilty of ostentatious display. These natives may be in the habit of throwing lavish parties, inviting the best people and sparing no expense to impress them with their assumed wealth. And such a person is the party animal whose life revolves around social entertainment. When he or she cannot throw his own party, then it's like gate crashing into another, just to be among people whose lifestyle is very desired by these natives. Okay. Now, Rahu in the fifth also signifies legerdemain in showmanship, so that the native can be a magician, performing tricks via sleight of hand, or a ventriloquist using a dummy as a surrogate, or a chameleon-like performer wearing outrageous costumes for dramatic change of personae. The fifth house also rules games and speculation, and Rahu is a big risk taker. So the native can be a bit of a gambler, anything from a casino player to a stock market speculator. And taken to the extremes of Rahu's negative behaviors, for example, cheating or imposturing or, usurping, this also suggests a card shack, pool hall hustler, pump and dump stock promoter, or a con man targeting suckers for a quick return. Now, Rahu in the fifth house of romance may bring a foreign lover into the native's life, and there could be something illicit about a romance with a paramour outside the social norm. For example, different ethnicity or religion, age disparity, socioeconomic gap, or same-sex orientation. And such love interests may be fickle, on again, off again affairs, and may bear the symptoms of a restless mind more than a committed heart. Now, Rahu is like Saturn, so it can be very frustrating in the fifth house of children. So it can so happen that the native might want children but be denied of children. Okay, but then if Sun or Mars influences this Rahu in the fifth, then abortion or even miscarriage is possible. And even if Rahu does not mean outright denial, it can still cause trouble with kids. Okay, for example, a non-conformist Rahu fosters kids who are square pegs in round holes. And as an iconoclast, Rahu implies kids with no respect for authority, elders, religion, or teachers. And because Rahu is toxic and poisonous, such a child may be a victim of substance abuse. Okay. And such a native can often single-mindedly be absorbed with kids. They are obsessed with having them, raising them, or launching them into the world to maximum effect. Okay. So it is like being a helicopter parent hovering over their kids, taking care of their every need. And some attachment parents live compulsively, trying to fulfill their own personal needs through their children. Okay. And such a native may have special or unusual children and project them onto his or her unique ambitions, molding them in his or her vision. And some children, of course, will meet these expectations, while others won't be meeting them, rebelling in unpredictable ways, much to the dismay of the parent who invested so much of his or her psyche in cultivating a special child. Now, Rahu is a foreigner, and as such, the native may adopt instead of creating his or her own child. Okay, and a family brood of multiracial children, as it can happen with adoptive parents, is one outcome. Okay, but with or without malefics aggravating this Rahu in the fifth, Jupiter can improve the situation. Okay, however, Jupiter's relief is limited to its one-sided aspects upon Rahu, okay, whereby Rahu can be stabilized, making it smooth or serene. The Sanskrit word for that is sama. And without Jupiter experiencing a negative blowback if it lies on, with Rahu, okay. So, for example, Jupiter's association with either Rahu or Ketu would only serve to destabilize the Karaka for children. However, if Jupiter is there in the ninth or the first house, from where it aspects the fifth house, it would provide a lot of relief to Rahu without exposing itself to cross-contamination. Okay, so that is about Rahu in the 5th house. Do let me know if it resonates with you. And as always, please leave behind your comments in the feedback section so that I can reach out to them. So that's it from me in this video. Kindly subscribe to the channel, like the content if you find it useful. And if you would like a consultation regarding your chart, you're always welcome to reach out at the given number. I'll see you soon in yet another video. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.